In 1999, a motocross twist of fate saw Aaron Baker shattering his neck and facing a life of complete paralysis. But what if I told you that the very man who was pinned to a hospital bed not only rose to stand again, but also bicycled across the United States twice and took bold steps across the unforgiving terrain of Death Valley? Welcome to the Crackin Backs podcast, where today we unravel a story of sheer will, unyielding spirit, and an unparalleled resilience of a man who defines impossible on his own terms. Aaron Baker, a symbol of human perseverance, is with us today. Prepare to be inspired.
All right. The title of this show of Crackin Backs is Don't Ever Let Someone Count You Out. And in 1999, our guest, Mr. Aaron Baker, broke his neck in a motocross accident, leaving him completely paralyzed. Yet, despite all odds, he defied both medical, sociological expectations and changed his destiny. And years later, he stood up out of his chair. So please tell us your story, because we have heard you not only rode a bike across the United States twice, but you also walked across Death Valley, and you're not even supposed to be able to feed yourself. So tell us the story, bud.
Well, first, thank you both, Dr. Terry, Dr. Spencer, for having me on the Crackin Backs podcast. I appreciate the time and the opportunity to share with your audience. So, yes, thank you. Shoot, man, that's a loaded question. This is 2.5 decades of a new life. As you mentioned, I did race motorcycles when I was young. I loved that chapter of my life for what I learned from the motorcycle, the discipline, the managing of fear, ever-changing conditions. I learned responsibility. And I apply a lot of the things that I learned from the motorcycle in those days racing to my life today, both in rebuilding from paralysis and as a father and as a professional. So I'm grateful for the motorcycle, and I say it often, but I would not change a thing, Terry. I had an accident. Many do. And I am grateful for the adversity that I face, because it sharpens me, it activates my potential, and it forces me to live mindfully, gratefully, with reverence. And so, although I'm challenged every day, if I circle all the way back, you said it, I was paralyzed from the chin down. Doctors gave me a 1 in a million chance of ever being able to feed myself. I was going to be completely dependent on doctors and nurses and family members and even friends for all of my needs. And that was true for a long, long time. For the first few years, I had to be fed. I had to be bathed. I had to be dressed. If I was going somewhere, somebody was picking me up and taking me out of bed and putting me in a chair, or picking me out of a chair and putting me in a car. I was literally an infant, a baby at 20 years old. And that as you can imagine, weighs heavy on a person's psyche, on a person's sense of self, especially a young, arrogant young man, 20 years old, full of life and getting a taste of independence. For that to be stripped away, it's quite difficult. So, needless to say, dark times set in. I became very depressed naturally. And I feel as though I was very fortunate, because I did have tons of love, tons of support from my mother, my father, my sister, friends in our area. Terry, you know many of them. A lot of my friends then are still my friends now, because they just love me unconditionally, and they were there. But at the time, it wasn't enough to pull me out of that dark place. It was just, I lost my identity, who I was, what I was here to do. I felt as though I'd become an extreme burden. And I wanted to be able to control something. I wanted to take something into my own hands, although my hands didn't work. And all I could imagine was committing suicide. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to live this way. And I came very, very close. I drove my electric wheelchair. It's over 200-pound electric wheelchair. I'm strapped to it with seat belts. And I drove it to the edge of the deep end of a swimming pool. And I sat there very seriously contemplating my next move. And
Wow.
And then, the longer I sat there and the deeper I stared into the water, the more I recalled the love and the light in my mother's eyes. As she stood over my bedside in the beginning of this journey, in the hospital, she was always there. She stared into my eyes. My grandmother was there. Like, that love was so deep and so profound that it literally pulled me out of my own abyss, out of my darkness. And I again remembered that I have more to do here than to sit and sulk and wallow or drown in my own despair. So I pulled the joystick back. I pulled back from the edge of that swimming pool. I turned around. I sobbed, I screamed, I yelled at the sky like, holy shit, the movie Forrest Gump, Lieutenant Dan screaming at the sky. That was literally me in my wheelchair, swerving down the sidewalk like a drunk, just pissed. But I'm here and I'm ready to do some work. And that decision right then was made to just do work. I mean, it's just hard work. And I found a lot of solace in the work, in the rehab process, in learning my body, in those infinitesimal little twitches and flickers of movement that were massive improvements, huge wins. I laid down at night satisfied with my effort in life. And I don't know how many of us can say that you're really satisfied at the end of your day with what you put out, what you gave of yourself. And I learned that about myself, like my metal. What am I made of? What can I actually do and achieve with my time, with my love, with my effort? And so that's why I say it, guys. I wouldn't change it, although it's hard, man. I didn't recover from a spinal cord injury. I am actively pursuing recovery. I'm actively trying to improve the quality of my life every damn day. And this is 24 years after. And I'll tell you,
Wow.
It doesn't get easier. Aging, as you know, is hard enough. Now age with a spinal cord injury. And you got to be a real student of the body. You got to become a master of your mind. And I find purpose and real passion in sharing how I do what I do with others like yourselves. So,
Aaron, with that said, I want to make it really super crystal clear to the audience that this isn't just any spinal cord injury. I mean, especially those of us who are involved in caring for athletes in sports, we hear about spinal cord injury. This is a severe injury you experienced, and against the odds, you are functioning when you weren't supposed to. You are functioning in a way that, not just physically, but emotionally. And
the road is filled with these potholes and smooth driving and ups and downs, and you're an inspiration. And if there, whether it's a physical disability or a mental disability, Dr. Terry and I have been interviewing people that have come close to killing themselves and suicide. But what is that part of your journey that keeps you moving forward? Is there something that you say to yourself continuously that that drives you forward? Because you're just a natural born, from what I've seen, on video and so and in the book and all that. You are driven. What is that?
When you said natural born, I just thought about Woody Harrelson and Natural Born Killers. Shit, man.
Yeah.
I'm a natural born killer.
Killer, right?
I mean, I go to war with myself every day. My target moves. My why changes. I mean, now I'm a father. That's a big shift. I have to do this on behalf of this little girl. If I want her to be a well-adjusted, happy, capable woman, I need to be an example. And my adversity is a wonderful platform for me to be able to do that for her. She is going to be able to see the world in a way that I think is going to be is beautiful. She sees me struggle, but sees me persevere. And she's already so empathetic. She helps me with things. She wants to help me get my shoes, or, push my wheelchair, or ride on daddy's lap, or, she's not scared of walking up to somebody else with a disability or some kind of difficulty. And she's right there and lending a hand already. But to answer your question, more specifically, this spinal cord injury gives me the opportunity to cut through the BS of life, and it immediately breaks the ice for conversation on a real level with individuals. It is obvious that I have challenges, so it gives other people permission to share their vulnerabilities, their insecurities, their struggles. And then together, inspiration occurs, and it's cyclical. It goes back and forth. They're inspired by me and how I persevere, and at the same time, so am I by them. And so that's how we feed off of each other and keep moving forward. Churchill said it: when you're going through hell, just keep going,
man. Fucking awesome. When you were in my office the other day, I asked you, because I had to keep reminding myself, especially as a chiropractor that deals with the spine, I had to keep remind myself that you didn't bruise the spine and you weren't paralyzed from swelling. You were paralyzed because you severed the spinal canal. And how did you explained to me how you bypassed all that and got your toes wiggling again. Can you explain to the audience how that happened?
Well, I mean, just to qualify this, we do recognize that all spinal cord injuries are different. Everybody has drastically different outcomes. I was very aggressive with the way in which I approached recovery and my thought process in the healing of the body. And so that makes a big difference, because you have to willfully send signals through an interrupted part of the, electrochemical cord, right? Like, you have to intentionally reroute a signal, and you do that with extremely focused thought. And it started with a funny little story. My sister came into my hospital room and wanted to paint my toes with nail polish as a way of kind of cheering me up, or making fun of the fact that I couldn't move, and she was just going to have a go at me. And so she ended up painting my toes rainbow colors, like all the different colors: blue, red, yellow, green, and was kind of cheeky about it, and was like, if you can kick me, then I'll stop. Brother-sister relationship. And I was totally pissed. I'm laying there totally effing paralyzed, and there she is making my toes look like Skittles or M&Ms. I mean, what was I going to do? So, but what ended up happening was I kind of instinctively already understood the art, if you will, of visualization because I used it as an athlete, racing motorcycles, closing my eyes and seeing in my mind's eye perfect technique, perfect laps, seeing myself winning, projecting a positive outcome. And somehow I started to apply that same technique to my body and my anatomy. And although I had no form of reference for human anatomy, I could close my eyes and I could see my systems. I could see my skeleton. I could see my musculature. I could see the electrified nervous system and how that connected and where an impulse would be sent and hit a muscle belly and cause a contraction and make that particular movement happen. So it all made sense in my mind. So when I started to close my eyes and think about my toes, I used the color as a tangible target for my mind to focus on. And I, instead of just this ambiguous electricity, it was more colorized. It was blue, my left leg, red, my right leg, yellow, green. And I started to move the color and swirl it through my spinal cord and intentionally bring it up into my mind and then back down into my body, reinforcing this mind-body connection. And I called it focused willed intent. And that's essentially how I began to literally connect my mind to the muscle, and my left blue toe twitched first voluntarily. And I built on it over years. Still do it. My toes are painted right now.
Yeah.
No joke.
I know.
That's great. Aaron, you say something that is absolutely brilliant. That I'm going to quote you on it. It's probability outcomes versus possibility outcomes, and that to me needs some further explanation. I get a lot of interns and lecture, and I teach the interns. It's easy to be a great doctor, especially in the sports world, and you got to inspire your patients to get better. How did you come up with this realization about where doctors talk about probability and you describe possibility?
Yes, this is something I'm very passionate about speaking to healthcare professionals about, is bedside manner, about planting seeds of possibility, because healthcare professionals hold so much power in a person's most vulnerable times, and they can make or break an outcome in a single interaction. And I propose that a person in that position use their knowledge and expertise to state facts and be like, look, this is your system. This is your injury. Statistically, these are outcomes. If you do not adopt an active, healthy lifestyle, if you do not take full responsibility for your nutrition and your activity and your rest, your lifestyle in general, then outcomes are very predictable for you. Bodies degenerate naturally over time, but with your situation, you can expect to have bone demineralization, osteoporotic outcomes. You can expect your muscles to atrophy, your joints to contract. You can expect to have bowel and bladder complications, blood pressure issues, thermoregulatory complications, autonomic dysreflexia. Like, there's a long list of shit that you are going to suffer from. Literally. And you're going to have to learn how to manage that. But if you do take responsibility and you really intentionally, aggressively adopt a lifestyle, then I have no idea what your outcome's going to be. The possibilities are endless. There are countless stories out there of individuals that are having extraordinary recoveries, high quality of life, and you can too. But it's up to you. I'm here to answer your questions, but I'm not here to project your future.
You lecture to regular folks. and or folks that are in the same situation that you were in or are in.
Are
And
in,
you ever
yes.
thought about lecturing to doctors and physical therapists, even, or any healthcare professional, because they don't understand that stuff. It's all clinical, very linear.
I'd love to. I'd love to.
Mm.
No, I mean, I see myself in the future when the doors of, those opportunities open. Yes, absolutely, I will be there.
That's great. I think that's really important because that's not inspiring patients is not taught. That just
Yeah, it's and there is a fine line there, right? We want to be ethical. We're not giving any kind of false hope. We're staying within our guidelines, but we're also opening the door for them, because the moment they leave that environment, the world is on their shoulder. It's up to them.
On that note, I asked you the other day about a question, and you gave me permission, and that is the emotion when you walk into somebody and they had the exact same injury as you do, and they're being fed by somebody else, and they're laying on the bed and they're pallor and they have bed sores and they can't move, and that's the same injury. How do you what do you say to them, and what's your emotions when you see that person laying there, and they're looking up at you and going, why you and not me, and you're looking at them going, why me not you? How do you handle that?
Oh, Terry, it's tough, man. I mean, human suffering is hard you're
yeah.
when you're really open and vulnerable, and you can feel them, and you're empathetic, and it's a kaleidoscope of emotion in the moment, where one, your heart breaks, and then two, you feel with so much gratitude and thankfulness that you do have these abilities, or that you are relatively well, and you recognize how far you've come. Like, that contrast is fluctuating in that moment. And all I've been able to do at those times is to just sit with that person.
Mm.
Just sit with
Mm.
them and not try to smooth it over with a bunch of banter or try to distract them from the reality that is, but to just be there, meet them right on that level, right there where they are. And if there are questions asked, then I'm there to field them and try to, relate, share my own struggles of the shittiest parts of this thing, because that's what they live with. And I know that. And I've had that. And I still deal with it. It's not past tense. This is now. And then together, we decide to just carry on. And I'll lean on them and they'll lean on me, and we'll try to just endure the next moment.
On that note, have any doctors or scientists figured out why you are recovering the way you are and others aren't?
Well, I mean, Terry, as we said, there's a ton of individuals like myself that are even, have experienced far better outcomes. And again, that's just the complicated nature of the neurological system's ability to rewire through plasticity, as we know. People are becoming more optimistic about recovery. They're pursuing it more aggressively. Their lifestyles are active. I mean, everything that we've already talked about, people are living and doing. And so there is a thing called neuroplasticity. And if we provide the right opportunities, the right environment, the right mindset, the body will do what it naturally does, which is heal and restore and reconnect and find new ways to thrive. We just have to believe it. We just have to live it. And, I attribute a lot of my abilities to that way of being and thinking and doing. I know for certain, as I said, that if I did not do these things, then the stats are correct and I would be a dependent. It would be a completely different world, if at all, because I probably wouldn't be here.
Aaron, do people still ask you, "Oh, you're just one in a million"?
Yeah, I mean it's a fine line, like a tightrope in the world of spinal cord injury, where guys like myself that are chronic 10 plus years say, "Oh, he's just lucky. He's one of those anomalies." And I have to tread very lightly, tactfully, respectfully. And that's why I choose to be a part of the solution for spinal cord in the realms of research, with my roles with Red Bull's nonprofit Wings for Life, and funding leading cutting edge science and research around the globe. And I'm transparent with my own suffering and be like, look, guys, we all have our shit. We're trying our best to navigate the world despite our struggles. So I just happen to have this level of injury at this point, and you're at this level or you're at this level. It doesn't matter. We're all trying our best.
Yeah, I want to later on. We'll ask you more about the Wings for Life, but I am so curious for you to share this bike ride that you took across America and the walking across a desert. You gotta tell the story. It's just wild.
I mean, the truth is that it's so hard for me to just get out of bed and walk down my hallway to a bathroom or to the dining room or the living room or anywhere, that if it's that hard for me to go 10 feet, then why wouldn't I just go for 10 miles in a place that is, wild and adventurous, and, I get to feel that sense of accomplishment and, break up the monotony of just everyday struggle. Like, if I'm going to struggle, then let's struggle and have a damn good time at it. So that's kind of my rationale with all the stuff that I do.
Did you ask yourself these crazy ass questions before you got injured?
No, I mean, I was just
Is this just your behavior? Is that just your character?
I think, I mean, my mom is, that's where I get my, I guess the fire in my belly. She's a Norwegian American Indian blooded woman.
Oh,
yeah. So she's fiery. Oh, yeah. She's fierce. My grandmother, man, you want to talk about tough. These women were cut from different cloth. And so I know that that's where some of this moxie comes from. And I was always pretty wild as a child, adventurous, making my own bungee cords, building my own go-karts, and I built a wingsuit when I was like 6 years old.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, this was all within the realm of my comfort. I was fairly calculated for my level of understanding. I, wrote my notes and I planned out my projects, and then went and experimented. So
the bike ride and that long stroll you took. Tell a little bit more about that.
I mean, those were just natural progressions of my recovery process, where it goes from the flicker of movement to the ability to sit on a recumbent bicycle with electrodes helping to fire my muscles and turn the pedals over, to then turning the pedals over myself autonomously, feeling that input, reconnecting to the muscle, to then an upright stationary bicycle, to then a tandem bicycle. And a tandem bicycle was not on my radar before an injury. That thing was pretty lame, and you wouldn't ever catch me on the back of a tandem. But it was interesting because I could sit on the back of a tandem with my hands strapped to the handlebars, my feet taped to the pedals, and somebody else could steer it. And I would be able to just sit on the back. And as we were talking about, right, like you turn narrow pathways into narrow highways with repetitive movements. And pedals, you know, over a few hours at a time, that's a shit ton of pedaling. That's a lot of signals. Right. So I'm flooding my body with signals by cycling. And so that's the thought process, right? Like sit on the back of a tandem and just go as long and hard as you can. And hopefully you're forging new pathways. So again, that's how I'm thinking. And we went from 5 minutes on the bike because I would literally like fall over. My torso wouldn't hold me up. My arms wouldn't hold me up. To then being able to do 5 miles, and 5 miles to 10 miles, 10 miles to, you know, more. And then I saw an ad on a billboard for the LA Marathon, 26.2 miles. And I thought, okay, there's a target. Let's work towards that. And my mother and I just kept pedaling. I mean, 3, 4, 5 days a week, we would ride the tandem bike with the goal of competing in and completing the LA Marathon. And we did that. Oh, yeah. We did the LA Marathon. We did it in 2003. We did it in 4. And then again in 6. And at that time, I was actually, my mother and I were presenting to an audience. And I was on stage and sharing the whole LA Marathon experience. And I thought, shit, if we're riding this tandem bicycle in these marathons for 26 miles, why don't we just ride it like Forrest Gump across the country? And, you know, her jaw dropped and the audience went silent. And I basically declared it right then and there that, okay, that's what we're going to do. And lo and behold, June 10th, 2007, we set off from Dog Beach, San Diego, and we traversed 3,182 miles across the southern tier of the United States to St. Augustine, Florida.
Oh. Well, all right. You should have stayed here.
Hey, that's a great place. I love it there. We literally rode the tandem right into the sand, right there by the. Oh
my gosh.
San Marcos something, or what does that do?
Yeah.
Anyways, that was the
very,
first tour.
Very cool.
That was the first tour.
And then the second?
Well, I mean, as you could imagine, I was pretty tired of riding behind the sweaty derriere of a person in front of me. And fortunately, I became strong enough to pedal my own cycle at that time. And I got creative and was able to fabricate a 3-wheeled bicycle, 2 wheels in the back and 1 in the front, which allowed me to sit and stay clipped into the pedals and maintain my balance. And when I realized I could ride that thing 5 miles, I went, let's do it again. So I rode it from San Francisco. Yeah, I rode it from San Fran to DC, 4,200 miles.
And then, because I asked you, I said, what was harder, that or walking across the desert? And you didn't even hesitate. Tell us about the desert walk.
Well, I spent the better half of a decade cycling, a lot of cycling. And although it was good for me in the beginning, I ended up creating a lot of dysfunction, a lot of muscle imbalance, a lot of chronic holding patterns on a bicycle that are not conducive to activities of daily life. And on the heels of a Paralympic bid, because after I finished the tour, I started racing the tricycle for the United States Paralympic program competitively. I won a national championship and was on the verge of going to London for the games in 2012. And 2 days before I was to get on the plane to meet the team there, I got a bladder infection. Oh. And I went to the hospital and sent my coaches a selfie. Said, sorry, fellas, I'm not making it. And so my Olympic dreams ended right there. And it was then that I realized I needed to retire the bicycle and focus on one step at a time. And it was while I was in a grocery store with my then girlfriend. I was holding onto a shopping cart and I was walking very slowly through the produce aisle. And I was like, hey, honey, I'm actually taking some pretty good steps right here. I need to actually keep going. Can we do some more laps around the store?
Grocery store.
And then as I'm walking out of the store and across the parking lot, a gust of wind hit. And usually without that cart, I would topple over. But that cart was like really secure. And I'm like, man, I need to just keep going. Like literally keep walking like this as far as I can. And in that moment, I had that vision of the sailing stones. Are you guys familiar what a sailing stone is?
No.
It's that iconic photo of like a volcanic rock in the middle of that dry desert that it looks like it's left a snail trail. And you wonder how that rock has gotten out there.
Yeah.
And some people think it's alien. Some people think like, anyhow, there is science behind how that rock gets out there. But I saw myself as that rock. And I thought, that's where I need to go. I need to go to that lunar landscape and walk. And that happens to be Death Valley, one of the lowest, driest, hottest places on the planet. And so anyways, that's where the whole like thing was hatched, the idea. And I thought, well, hell, I can't steal one of these shopping carts. How do I get something like this? I literally went on eBay and I looked for baby jogging strollers. You know, the kinds you see moms jogging down the street, 3-wheeler.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Terry, the Giant Mountain Bikes makes one with suspension and knobby tires and a front brake and cup or water bottle holders. And there was one right here locally, $100. I went and picked up the baby jogging stroller. I cut all the baby stuff out of it and put bicycle grip tape on the handlebars and fashioned my solar panel and my umbrella and carried all my own gear. It was about 100 pounds. And I used that as my life support vehicle or my life support wagon or whatever, my cart.
Yeah.
And I pushed that thing 20 miles across Death Valley.
How many steps is that?
What was it? I don't know. It's like 27,000, something like that. What there was a film made. There's a lot of steps.
Yeah, I think it was more like 70,000 something stuff. I don't know. It was a.
But I mean,
even then,
to get to that point, I had to take a lot more. So that was just the.
Oh my God.
And people have to understand that not only did you walk across the desert, but you walked self-contained. So you fed yourself. You went to the bathroom. You had to pull out a bed to sleep on, and And I asked you, I go, what's it like to walk across 20 miles? And you said, it's like you going on your hands and trying to do a handstand and walk on your hands. Is that pretty fair?
Yeah, that's about as accurate as I could be. For the average person that is not a gymnast, to try to do a handstand, the amount of strength it takes, for one, to hold your body weight up, the amount of coordination and balance to coordinate those movements and hold yourself up against gravity and to move through time and space while in a handstand is about, it's as close as you can get to what it feels like for me to think about movement and make my body walk. There's actually, look at my hand right here, guys. This is an experiment. If you put your hand on the table and you extend your ring finger and you push down through your hand and you try to lift this finger off the table.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
That's paralysis.
Nice example.
That's apply that to all 4 limbs, and that's like the mind.
That was fantastic.
That was huge. Very cool. I'm going to be working on that all day today.
Yeah, try to
Yeah.
make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not happening very well. Come on. You can do it.
Yeah, a lot of self-talk. Come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Aaron, how about nutrition? How big a role was that for you?
It's huge. It's fuel in the tank, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to put sugar in your car tank. Although, you know, I'm guilty of you know, having my cravings, and I listen to my body. I think that's the most important thing. You know, if I need sugar, I have natural sugars. If you know, proteins and fibers, and it's just balanced. You know, I've followed trends and things in the past. I've explored diets and fads, and it's nothing works quite as well as just being mindfully aware of the quality of food that you're eating. The nutrient timing of your meals is pretty important in my world. You know, when you eat, quantity you eat, quality you eat. My digestive system functions at maybe 60%. So, you know, I can't just eat and then eliminate. That food sits with me longer. And, you know, I deal with bloating and impaction, and I will gain a lot of nutrients through high impact juices, so that it assimilates quickly, enters the bloodstream and gives me what I need. But I just pay attention to those things. I'm not a zealot, but I know the difference in quality.
Did the nutrition you learned, or did you learn during motocross? Because that's obviously extremely rigorous. Did any of that apply to walking across Death
No.
Valley?
Well, the nutrition for Death Valley was specific, and I can go into that if you want. But to answer your question, no. I mean, I was too young and naive, and I didn't have a lot of specific guidance in the realm of nutrition at that time. My mom was a great cook. As a boy, she introduced me to a lot of different culture and food, eclectic foods. But I didn't really understand how I could gain a performance edge with my nutrition at that time.
Yeah. All right, Aaron. I'm going to go back a little bit because I'm playing with my finger here and realizing how hard it is to get off the damn table, and and when you know, I was thinking about this whole thing, and in the beginning of the injury, or you start a business, or you leave your truck and you start this walk, or this, you know, let's talk about the walk. The first part is like euphoric, you've got this and all that kind of stuff. And then you hit that middle section where your gains aren't as good and reality sets in, and the loneliness sets in, and the struggle sets in. And it's the same thing like in business or anything, but everything, it doesn't progress as fast. You have that shoot, and then now you're in that little, what you learn about the desert. It took you 6 days to go 20 miles. What did it take? What did you learn about that middle section that maybe you hadn't learned from your other struggles? What did the desert teach? We always hear, I'm sorry for rambling, we always hear the desert is a great teacher. What did the desert teach you?
It humbles you. I mean, it really brings you down into the present moment, into the very basics of being alive, and it filters out the noise. You know, as you said, you start off, you're excited, you're all prepped, and you're feeling good, you're hydrated, you got energy, but then, you know, you're really in it, and you're deep, and there's no way out, and you need to really come down into that moment and face it with humility and with reverence and respect the earth and the present moment, because if you don't, you're dead. I mean, you will succumb, just like the natural order of life. So you need to come in there and pay attention, and every breath, every thought, every morsel of food, every step you take has to have meaning. It has to have movement and momentum. And you begin to mindfully move with the flow of the earth and the stars and the wind and the animals and the plants, and you just merge. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to be.
Did you learn anything in there that you hadn't learned in all your rehab up until that moment that helped you move on to where you are now?
Well, that moment brought me back to a death experience that I had in the hospital. I mean, that was my death experience is the single most profound moment of my entire life. And being back in the desert at that point was analogous to the merging that I experienced when I flatlined.
Oh, you really did?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
That's the basis for my entire being now, is my understanding of this interconnected true oneness that all religion and philosophy and theology and science alludes to, but we fail to articulate the true essence of what it means. And my experience was, I used the analogy of a raindrop falling through the sky. Our life is that raindrop. And the moment you land in the ocean, your being, your sense of matter, your coalesced energy merges instantaneously with the entire sea, and you are indistinguishable from the whole. And that was my consciousness. The moment my last breath left my body, my heart stopped beating. It was not some light or dark or being or some form. Everything, like the final scene in The Matrix, when Neo is standing in the hallway, and Neo and the walls and the other beings and everything was ones and zeros. That means that everything is pure potential and can manifest into any form at any time for any reason. And that was what I awoke with when I was resuscitated, shocked back into my paralyzed body. I opened my eyes with that understanding, and that's where I was in the desert.
Okay, that just registered on the goosebump scale. That was, woo-hoo-hoo.
Yeah,
You got to remember that. That was freaking awesome, bro.
It's scary as hell. It's scary as hell until you get there, and when you're there, it's bliss.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. All right, I think I'm pretty fired up right now, and I hope you are too, because we are going into one of our favorite parts of our podcast. It's called the rapid fire questions, and we got 5 of them for you.
Cool.
So, are you ready, Aaron?
I'm always ready.
All right, my man. So the way this works is I'll ask you a question. You got to give it to me quick and easy and simple and brief, but we end up getting interested in the answers and start talking about them more. So here we go. Question number 1. We want to know about your love of riding down trails at Snow Summit, especially when you follow your friend Josh.
Josh, I love Josh Baltimore. He is one of my rocks in life. That guy is so trustworthy, so loyal. I mean, I can call him for anything. So I follow him with a smile on my face. I'm eating dirt and rocks. And I can't stop laughing because we pick up right where we leave off every time. We're a couple of young boys just loving it. So yes, I am flying down the trails behind him on my recumbent mountain bike, trying to hit all the jumps to the best of my ability, so much so that I break my equipment. Yeah!
Did you, what broke?
The whole thing. Oh shit!
Clean up.
Just make sure nobody jumps the trail.
Oh fuck. Oh, that's a shitty weld.
Woo!
Oh, you know what?
Need to get somebody up trail, man.
Yeah,
It just happened. Good?
yeah, he was already paralyzed.
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh wait, we gotta undo your.
Yeah, I'm strapped.
Okay.
That was our last time.
Oh my God. Oh, better that than your neck.
Well, it's funny. There's actually a video of that where my other friend Luke has the GoPro and I'm laying on the ground. I broke my bike in half. It literally snapped and I tumbled. And some other riders came up and you hear Luke say, it's okay. He's already paralyzed.
Hey, Aaron. Do you for our YouTube video? Do you give me permission to run that video?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's on there. You got to fast forward a couple of minutes to the mid trail, but it's a brutal wreck. It's
Oh, Josh gave it to me yesterday.
okay. Cool. Run it.
All right.
Yeah, I got lucky. I got lucky on that one.
All right.
Yeah. Question number 2, Aaron. If they would do a major motion picture about you, who would you choose to play your role?
Oh, good question. I don't know. Maybe I guess a McConaughey or what's his name?
Ooh.
Leonardo.
Oh, that'd be great. Or Neo, or what's it?
Yeah, I mean he's a little
from the
darker than me.
Matrix.
He's a little darker than me. But somebody of my likeness that can actually like really embody the contrast of my personality, where I can either be a sage in a pure meditative spiritual space, or I can be the fucking devil.
Right on.
Love it.
McConaughey would do it. All right. Excellent. Question number 3. If you could go back in time and ask someone one question, who would you want to meet and what would that question be?
Ooh, dang, good question. Back in time. I mean, I'm not going back too far, but maybe just to sit with my great grandmother in the real hard times of surviving, like a Dust Bowl era, living with a large family and providing and persevering, sitting with that woman, around an open fire.
You've heard stories about her?
Yeah. I mean, these were hard people. We're soft these days.
Yeah. Excellent. Man, that I did not expect that answer, and that's a beautiful one. Question number 4. What is a book that you love that you feel that everyone should read, other than yours?
Well, okay. I love Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. But I also love this book is pretty empowering. And I met this man, Bruce Lipton. It's called The Biology of Belief. He's a cellular biologist, and he just talks about how we can influence our biology with the way in which we think. It's called epigenetics, and we don't have to be predisposed to our genetics. We can actually affect how we turn on and off our genes. And so it's empowering to understand that. So I like that.
Absolutely brilliant. Yes. Bruce Lipton is fantastic. Hold up your book. Let me see your book. Hold it up for some of our viewers.
I'm proud of that one. It's been a lot of work.
Yeah. So are we. Very, very good.
Cheers.
Great.
I wrote this really just for my daughter, like to share this and hopefully others glean some valuable things out of it, but also, for her, I want her to know that where she comes from.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for that. That's inspiring. Now, the last of the questions. You say you are an open book,
Yeah.
but what is something that most people don't know that they would be surprised to learn about you?
Just I think the depth and breadth of my um, personality. I do a lot of my work on my own because I go to places that are very uncomfortable in the mind and body, and I like it there. Um, the fierceness in which I do my exercises and the way in which I do them is not going to be very enjoyable for somebody to join me. The way in which I meditate and can become completely um, immersed in the silence, and my ability, as I've been told, even when I was younger, to be a chameleon and to be able to merge into different cultures with respect and reverence and patience, empathy, compassion. Like, this is a massively broad scope of being, and I do not subscribe to any one way of life because life is far too diverse, and I want to be as malleable as possible so that I can experience and reflect the essence of being alive.
That's great. That's great. I'm curious as to why there's so few long-term facilities in the nation, only 35 of them, and there's 1.46 million Americans with some sort of spinal cord injury. And why is that? And I want to hear more about this Wings for Life Red Bull that you're with. So go for that.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? Every 2 minutes, somebody has some form of spinal cord injury or disabling incident.
Wow.
Back when I had my business, a rehabilitation facility, it was 1 in 5. Now it's 1 in 4 Americans. It's 1 in 6 globally. It's like 16% of the global population has a disability. And actually, if you factor in mental disorders, it's a far larger number.
Right on.
All the more reason for the work that I'm preparing myself to do, which I'm not ready to disclose that, but I will be focusing on research, rehabilitation, and recreation, and providing opportunities in those 3 realms. But the work that I've been doing, specifically to answer your question about research and Wings for Life, which is Red Bull's charity, as I mentioned, I feel very strongly about being a part of the solution and investing in our future and finding ways to improve quality of life through cutting edge science, rehabilitation, robotics, stem cell, even neurostimulations. Like, it's going to be a combination of a lot of those areas that will yield something efficacious. Right now, there is no pill that's going to get you out of a chair. And even if there was, somebody with a chronic spinal cord injury to all of a sudden feel their body to try to move with all those secondary complications I mentioned earlier, I mean, that's a nightmare. So will there be a cure in my lifetime? I don't look at it as a cure because it's not an ailment, it's an injury. Spinal cord specifically. Injuries, as we spoke about, can heal if provided the right opportunities. I feel like a lot of those secondary complications will be addressed, and we will return hand function. We will improve bowel and bladder. We will, reverse a lot of those issues. And I think people will have opportunities in the not so distant future to walk out of their chairs. I just want to be an example now of a healthy, active lifestyle.
Is Wings for Life doing anything in particular that is different?
Yeah. One, it's a unique charity in that 100% of every dollar raised goes to our mission, because Red Bull is our founding father and underwrites all the expenses, all the operating costs for the charity. And that's pretty unique. Nonprofits, a lot of nonprofits can't say that. And they match dollar for dollar.
Wow.
So we are infusing the brightest minds with the financial stimulus needed to carry out long-term research programs, to get them off the bench and into practical applications like human trials. And we have human trials under our umbrella. We fund globally. I am on the board of the U.S. Portion of Red Bull's charity, Wings for Life USA. And there's a lot of promising stuff out there. It's getting closer. Another distinguishing fact about Wings for Life is that we encourage, or not encourage, we actually mandate that all our projects cross-pollinate each other, meaning we share the data. It's open source, so that it reduces redundancy. It actually can feed off of each other. Every year we hold a symposium in Austria, the home base of Red Bull and Wings for Life. And all the scientists from around the world, all those that we fund, come together and present and share their findings, whether the data is good or bad. It doesn't matter. It's all good, because we're sharing it openly and we're moving the needle.
It's great, man. Great.
Sorry, that's a lot of info, but
No, that's
Love
that's the stuff we're looking for.
Yep.
So it gives us hope. If there's somebody out there that is maybe doesn't have access to a lot of, how can somebody that's newly injured or in the middle of their struggle, how can they find some of this stuff?
wingsforlife.com is a central hub for tons of information. There's also something called trialsfinder.com, of which we have funded, where you can type in your location and your level of injury, and it will link you to relevant projects in your area. But wingsforlife.com, obviously reach out to me. I am available. This is what I do with individuals, with families. So I'm aaronbaker.com. Please, I'm always a phone call, text, or email away.
Wow. All right. In closing, first off, thank you for your time. But in closing, I'm going to read a quote you wrote in your book. And for those who, and I'm going to put a link to it, for those who want to know more about your book, it is an incredible read. It's called The Rebellious Recovery. And I think everybody should get a copy of this book, not only for inspiration, but it's just I think it's a great business book, because it teaches people not to give up when they get hit with an adversity. So, but I hope this quote resonates in the minds of our listeners. It says, "My achievements do little to contribute to the world unless they illustrate something fundamental about me and about you. May my history inspire and provoke you to think of your own story as an adventure, and for the construct of these pages to become a mirror for your mind." Aaron, the floor is yours. Please leave us with some final thoughts.
Fellas, we do it together, man. Having a platform like this, the fact that you guys have opened up yourselves and sharing your time and bringing, people like myself and others that are just doing their best to live well and to share that ride. This is what it's about. Let's support each other, lean on each other, push each other, and together we'll rise.
Great. You're a good guy. Good, very inspiring, buddy.
Thank you. And thank you for your time, bud.
Yeah.
Likewise, fellas.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Crackin Backs podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Crackin Backs Podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday. See you next time.